Day 11, day 11. Welcome back to vLENT 2019, where I am going through the Diary of St. Faustina. For today's journal entries, we are doing 347 to 393. I love reading things written by saints or about the saints because we realize that they are average, everyday people just like any of us. So in 348, St. Faustina writes, "The first Thursday after Christmas, I completely forgot it was Thursday, and so did not make my adoration." So she went to adoration on Thursdays, we heard earlier in her diaries, but I just love how she wrote, "I completely forgot it was Thursday," because that's something that happens to me all the time. Like, you just lose track of the day, lose track of things, and it just showed me that it was a sign of her humanity. She's a person just like any of us, and so I thought that was kind of a cool moment that isn't super profound in what she's saying, but just the fact it reveals that we're all called to be saints, even though we're forgetful, even though we mess up with certain things. The next journal entry in this section that I thought was notable is number 354. And she writes, "Oh God, how easy it is to know your will in the convent. We religious have God's will set clearly before our eyes from morning till night. And in moments of uncertainty, we have our superiors through whom God speaks." Upon first reading this, along with some other things she writes about her time in the convent, it can seem a little bit unrelatable. And as I'm reading through, there's part of me who thinks, oh, I should skip this section. It doesn't apply to me. I'm not a nun. But I love how in this section she acknowledges that as a religious sister, she has the benefit to having less distractions. And one thing that I'm thinking about as I've been going through this diary and then having this YouTube channel and thinking a lot more intentionally about the vocation of marriage and motherhood, I realized that a lot of times we categorize people in religious orders as being extra holy or having these like extra benefits that us lay people or non-religious order people do not have. And the thing though is we are all called to holiness. We can't just look at these priests and religious sisters, put them up on a pedestal and act like, well, they're extra holy, that's why they have to pray all the time. Well, nuns have to be holy, and that's why they have to dress modestly. Oh, but I can go on the beach and wear a bikini because I'm married. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. Even though marriage is not considered the sacrament of holy orders, marriage in its own way is a holy order. It's marriage, it is a sacrament. And so it's important for us in that vocation to treat it as such. It's very easy not to because most people in the world don't, which is very funny because anytime we see a priest or a nun who sins in even the slightest way, people will literally quit being Catholic because of the horrible things they do. But if we see a married person cheat on their spouse or do something very wrong, we don't leave our faith. We think, well, that person isn't, doing the right thing. But so we hold the religious to higher standards. I wrote about this in my book a little bit too, about the time of singleness and just this whole thing. And I guess for me, just in my heart, I feel like it's so important to remind people, remind myself too, that what we have here as wives, as mothers, is sacred. And even if you're unmarried and you came across my channel, your position in life, we're all striving for holiness. So whatever place in life we are right now and whatever vocation we end up being called toward, the goal for us all is heaven, to be united with God. And going back to what St. Faustina said, she is appreciating the fact that in the convent, it's so much easier to see God's will and to follow that path because she's free from a lot of distractions that married people may have. But in the same way, we can't get all sad about it because although we as married people do not have the luxury of all of the resources that a religious sister or a priest might have at their disposal on a daily basis, we also have a gift of being in the world. The same thing that makes it harder for us to live out our vocation is the same thing that will bring us holiness. Why? Because in our vocation, we are called as a married couple to be a visible sign of Christ's love to the world. The love between a husband and wife should be so, inspirational for people that it brings them closer to God. They should look at a husband and wife and see God's love. And have you ever seen usually they're a lot older, have you ever seen a video or a talk or just people in your own life, maybe a grandparent, and you look at the love between that couple, especially older ones where they've had like all these years to grow in their love for one another, and you just see that just selfless love that they have, and it's so beautiful and it warms your heart, and you just think they're the most adorable people ever, and there's just all these beautiful signs of love in the married life and people around us, and those are very holy people too. Just because they didn't choose a religious order, holy order vocation does not mean they're not called to the same love for God and the same joy that they have. Marriage is not a default vocation. Next thing, I'm not going to talk about too much about this for the video because I want to keep it short, but it was funny how St. Faustina was told to write down, from today on, my own will does not exist, and then cross it out. Well, they show it crossed out. Kind of a fun touch. Final journal entry from this section that I want to read, although there were many good ones, is number 393, where Jesus spoke to St. Faustina and said, "You are a sweet grape in a chosen cluster. I want others to have a share in the juice that is flowing within you." And I really like the imagery that comes along with that. And when you visualize a cluster of grapes, I never really thought about it, that they're kind of sharing the same juice and they're all in this one cluster together. It's kind of a cool comparison, and it just reminds me we are many parts, but we are all one body, and how we're separate, but there's also this great deal of unity at the same time. And just the imagery of the grapes I thought was a really cool thought. So that is all for today's reflection. Was there anything in here that stuck out to you? Let me know in the comments below if there is, and I appreciate all of you who have so far. I always get so excited to see your comments, and I'm so happy that you are following along, and hopefully you're enjoying reading through this book too. Talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.